Okay, so we're going to begin with some housekeeping as always. So today's session is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants later this week. So if you would like to share the recording with a colleague who was unable to attend, or if you would like to revisit any of the content covered in today's session, you can. A copy of the slides and the Q&A also will be sent to all registrants next week. The audio for this session is available through your computer speakers or by dialing in by phone. If you experience poor sound quality at any time through your computer speakers, you may wish to try dialing into the session by phone instead. This can be done by accessing your device settings at the top of your screen within the Teams session. Click the three dots for more settings, then select device setting, and the device setting area will open on your right-hand side. So participants will remain muted throughout the session. However, there's a chat area which you can also be accessing via the top of your screen with the Teams. We will be monitoring this throughout the session, so please submit any questions or comments you may have at any time. There will be an open Q&A at the end, so you have a chance to ask any questions you want. So let's move on to our presenters. So Stephen, over to you.
You're muted, Stephen, sorry.
So yes, hi, welcome. So presenting today are myself, Stephen Leach, I'm a Customer Support Advisor, also Stephen Adorento, also a Customer Support Advisor. It's Imogen Wiley, our Senior Product Manager, and we have also with us today Harry Barton, who's the Head of Operations, and Sarah Bray, who's our Development Manager for Education. So we'll just be going through, and so the agenda for today, we'll be having presentations from Harry, Sarah, and Imogen today. So Harry was talking a bit about our data and distributions, what we do with the data that we get from you, and what happens to it. And we'll be going through a quick license update. And with Sarah and Imogen, we'll be talking about the current DCS updates, and we're doing a Q&A at the end. So over to you, Harry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for having me to this month's webinar. I just said to the team, apologies if you hear banging or drilling somewhere in the office building. There are works going on, so I can hear it, but hopefully you can't where you all are. So yes, thanks. I'm here to discuss a bit about our data and distribution. For my role at the CLA, I'm essentially my responsibilities lie in terms of managing that data from yourselves as licensees reporting to us all the way through to the rights holders at the other end of the chain in terms of that distribution. So taking the license revenue and working out who do we need to distribute that to. So I'm going to start off with a bit of an overview generally about our data collections and then move forward into validation and distribution, and hopefully just give you a bit of insight that is useful and a bit of context as to what happens when you submit your data through the DCS to us. So you go on to the next slide, please, Stephen. Fantastic. So just starting, looking at our data collection more generally, we a range of different ways that we collect data from different sectors and different licensees, starting with things like the DCS, so products that we at CLA have developed that not only help you, the licensees, with using and accessing content and sharing content, but then also obviously giving us that data, telling us these are the works we've used, so here, please support that rights holder, that author, that publisher that's helped produce that content. We also have developed other means of reporting platforms for CLA licensees. An example of that is a platform called My Content, and that's essentially a self-reporting tool which we primarily at the moment use in schools and further education settings, but we're looking to extend it into some of our corporate license holders, so businesses, charities, local authorities, etc., where essentially they may tell us what they've been copying, what they've been using, and fill it out in an online form, and it provides them with the bibliographic metadata to help them do that. So often what we found from some of our research is that not always do users of content know the title of the book, but they can, if they see it, they'll go, yeah, that's the book I've copied. So that platform actually helps customers do that by seeing that book and selecting, yeah, that's the one I've been photocopying this week. And so we receive data through that way. Another way that we collect data that we've started trialing within the HE sector this year is looking at other means of collecting data through the existing workflow of licensees. So this is something we've trialed in schools, and as I just said, we've trialed it in a very small case this year within some universities, looking at how we capture data through photocopiers. So by having a CLA copy button on that photocopier, that once you've made a copy, you can say, oh, this is copying that falls under the license. Send a PDF, a copy of that to CLA, and then we'll see that data, be able to identify it, and then put that through into distribution as well. And then lastly, we have a behavioural insight program that runs every year across different sectors, where we may ask questions like, how much are you copying? What type of copying do you use? What's the format of content which you're most using? The subjects of titles, etc., that you're most using? And then that forms not necessarily always a direct impact to a distribution, but certainly it helps provide that evidence base as to why we distribute in a certain way or how we distribute in a certain way. So as a general kind of overview, that's the different ways that we collect data across CLA's licensees. Next slide, please. So then it comes to us. So you can see at the top there all the various different sectors that we work in, and all that data that you provide via the DCS feeds into what we call the data exchange. So that is a platform or a system that we've built ourselves that collects all the hundreds of thousands, millions of different data events that we collect across the different licensees. So that copy data there on the left-hand side feeds into data exchange, as does the license revenue. Comes into that system, and we then pair up what the data is against the revenue that we've generated. So it works in the way that if we've generated X many £million to the higher education sector, then that gets paired against the data from the higher education sector. Likewise, all the data that you get from schools gets matched against the license revenue from schools. So wherever that revenue is being generated and used, the data is such applied to it. Underlying all of that data exchange is a huge amount of bibliographic data. So we work with a number of different trusted sources like Nielsen Book Data, Ulrich, ISSN Portal, to give us that confidence and understanding of what these different data events are and who the rights holders to that data is. That all then matches up and goes into our distributions, which are then subsequently distributed out to our 4 member bodies. So that's the Authors Licensing and Collecting Society, the Design and Artist Copyright Society, the Picture Industry Collecting Society for Effective Licensing, or PIXEL, and Publishers Licensing Service, PLS. So in terms of that white box there, the distribution, that's the bit that we often get a lot of questions about. So when we get that data, how do we then work out how much goes to each rights holder? So if we go on to the next slide, again, I'll just give you a bit of insight into what, and maybe again, I think, if that works. Yeah, perfect. How we decide, how much of that revenue needs to go, how much of that license fee needs to go to each usage. So we look at 3 different things. We look at the methodology that we've used to collect that data. So as an example, if we know how many copies have been made, if we know how many pages have been copied within a book or within a journal, that's a huge kind of quality of data there. We know exactly what was copied, exactly how much that book was used, and that has a very high weighting in terms of how we distribute the license fee. Sometimes, however, we're just told we've copied this book, but we don't know how much or what pages, etc. So that has a lower weighting. And then thirdly, sometimes we're told we have these books available to copy, but we don't necessarily know that they have been copied. So again, it has even lower weighting of strength or evidence in terms of what's been used. So we look at those different things across the sectors in terms of how much we might allocate to each title. We also look at the different usage. So has something been photocopied? Has it been scanned? Has it been shared digitally, either via an email or in a presentation or on a screen in a lecture? And again, the different value associated to each of those habits, and those are things that there is no prescribed workbook out there that we can work from. And these are things that over the course of time in CLA's 40-year existence, that we have worked with rights holders to understand where the value of the license is, where the value of the different usage is, and proportion those accordingly. We continuously review them, certainly, in the last 10, 20 years, or even in the last kind of 5 years or 4 years rather since COVID, and we see behaviours changing. We're constantly looking at the kind of different value of these usages and how much actually people are using digitally now. Maybe there should be more value there, or is the value still within the print book, etc. And all these kind of decisions are always kind of governed and worked through with each of the 4 member bodies to ensure that whatever percentage and revenue we allocate is done as fairly and as equitably as possible, and always in consultation with them. And then lastly, we look at the format. So is it a book? Is it a journal? Is it a magazine? Is it a website? And depending on its format, depends on how much goes to each of those different 4 organisations. For example, there's a greater revenue allocated to visual artists from copying from a book compared with a journal, because we know that typically less illustrations or pictures, etc., might be in a journal than a book. But again, all of those things have been kind of decided and agreed amongst the members, and then we as CLA are kind of acting on that distribution, on those kind of agreed percentages. So all of those 3 different tiers, those different levels, translates into money. Perfect, Stephen. Thank you. No, all good. So looking at what that actually means in terms of license fees. So these are the numbers from 2022 to 2023. I think I would have loved to have given you the last year's numbers, but as I understand it, we're currently there. Our auditors are currently working through that. So without jumping ahead of the game, can't do that. So I've shared with you that the year before. But we distributed a total of £81.2 million to rights holders across these 4 organisations. So ALCS there, 26.8 million to authors. You've got DAX and Pixel there in the middle, to just over £5 million across those 2 organisations. And then the PLS, the Publishers Licensing Service, just under £40 million was distributed to them. So this is just 1 year. This is just a year of distributions. But in total for the CLA, since we were established, thank you. Since we were established over 40 years ago, we have distributed over £1.5 billion to more than 200,000 artists, authors, and publishers. So everything that you do in terms of the effort that you put in to kind of gathering and collecting and sharing that data with us, using the DCS and supporting all of your users and all of your institutions to help them copyright, is all fed into these big numbers, and does have that huge kind of positive impact to each of the rights holders at the end of this process. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Harry. If people have questions for Harry, if you've got them immediately, pop them in the chat. If not, then I think, Harry, you said that you could hang about till the end. Yeah, wonderful.
I'll be here. I'm keen to hear from everybody else and see what else in the webinar. So yeah, I'll be here.
Fantastic. Well, nobody's been hot on the keys and putting in questions, so I think let's move on. I'm not sure who's controlling the slides at the moment. Have we lost Sarah? She's popped off the screen.
No, I am here, but for some reason my camera is not working, and I'm not sure why. It was working.
Your voice is working.
My voice is
the key thing.
My voice is working, thankfully. I'm not sure what's going on here, but I'll get going anyway. And if I appear, that's perhaps a bonus. So thanks for all coming along. And as you probably are all aware, we have a new license coming into place from the 1st of August. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that. So 4 main areas. So first of all, license signature. I think I had a very quick scan of who's here. I think everybody here, or their relevant colleague, has actually now signed the license, or if they've got an issue, they've been in touch to discuss. That's great. And it's been really nice to talk to those of you who've been in touch. If by any chance you haven't, please do sign or let us know if you've got any issues as soon as possible, because the deadline has now passed. So just so that we're aware of any difficulties you might be having. And then I wanted to touch on the invoicing options, and this is pertinent to state HE only. So for independent HE, obviously you give us your data directly, but for state we have had an issue which you probably know about, which is that the JISC HESA data set that we use for invoicing has been delayed. So publication has been delayed till at least August. And we are offering 2 options, either to be invoiced on last year's figures with the option to, well, with a reconciliation when we do get that data, or to wait until that data is received. And I just wanted to clear up a bit of a confusion that's arisen around the second option we offered. So we did use the terminology account being on hold. That simply means that it will be marked as payment pending. It doesn't mean that you won't be covered by the license, provided you've signed the agreement. It just means your account will be on hold and payment is pending, and that will require further information, i.e. confirmation or adjustments from you once we do have that HESA data. And we still don't know when that is. It could be August, it could be October, and there will be quite a tight turnaround when we get that data, and largely so that we can meet the deadline for autumn royalties distribution through rights holders. And so if we don't hear back from you, if you have selected option 2 and we don't hear back from you within that quite tight window, then there's quite a strong chance that you'd be auto invoiced, which obviously we don't want to do, but it's a necessary evil. So yes, it's just a heads up. I think most people so far have gone for option 1, but option 2, license still covered, but there will be more for you to do when we do get the data. If you've got any questions on that, do let me know. And then we have a new portal, which is intended to make the process of reporting your student numbers or confirming them much easier. It's been a little bit complicated this year, launched by the delayed data, which was completely unforeseen. But next year it'll be completely smooth, and it should be a lot easier for both you and for us. So you should have had an email about that portal. Further information and support. I think that, and we've had a few questions about this. So what happens once the agreements are in and options received? I think it might be useful to have an FAQ that we could put onto the website. If that's something you would appreciate, it'd be good to have a bit of a show of hands, but I think it probably would be, just to go into a bit more detail about what happens when, so far as we can tell at this point. Sorry, just no, camera's still not working. Further information, yes. So that there are the FAQs. We're also working on the support materials. Some of those in conjunction with CNEC, the UK Guild HE group, and we'll be adding those as and when we can. There is a bit of information on the website at the moment, which we link to in communications, and then we're planning to hold a dedicated webinar for the new license, probably in August. So if you do have any questions, please do get in touch with us, either to me directly, and I'll put my email into the chat, or having said that, I'm actually on leave for a few days, so it's generally best to contact the education customers mailbox, because then that's constantly monitored, but feel free to email me as well. I'll put both of those addresses in the chat in a little bit. I'm happy to answer any sort of very high level questions, but if you've got anything particular, then probably best to speak directly. I think that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. And again, are you able to hang around till the end, Sarah, for questions?
Sure, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, if you've got anything immediate, then pop it in the chat. You did have a lot of thumbs up. You probably saw. I'm not sure if you can see as well. A lot of thumbs up for the FAQ.
Oh yes,
so that sounds like a winner.
Good.
Great. Again, nothing sort of rushing into the chat in terms of questions. So I'm going to steal the share, which is going to be this one. Good. Hopefully that is now visible. And I have lost the notes attached to it. That's brilliant. Well done, me. Aha, good. Right, apologies. So I'm going to talk a little bit about DCS updates. Now, because it's been rollover, we haven't been doing anything in the system itself because we freeze the code. So instead, let's look at what's coming. So there's been a lot of conversations around EHES. I mentioned last week that we're working on something, and the British Library is nearly ready to restart the service. I think I also mentioned, though, that it's going to be a kind of semi-manual process, so there'll be a few changes to it. So we've been working very closely with the British Library on what the most streamlined approach would be, and we've consulted a group of DCS users. I think I asked for volunteers at the webinar last time, and we met to sense check what we were planning. So the work within the DCS started. It started this week. It's now underway. So yeah, it's all go basically. Why is this not changing? There we go. So a quick overview of the key changes then. So the first thing is the fulfillment. The old system, if you like, was a 48-hour turnaround time. Because it's going to be manual, that we're now seeing about 4 days. Now, the British Library is fairly confident that that's going to be sustainable even at peak times. So 4 days might be quicker, but particularly at peak times, allow 4 days. Cancellation. Before, particularly in the DCS, you could cancel up until the accepted status. Now, we're not going to be automating the statuses in the same way. So we're saying, please make sure you want it before you put it through. But if you do have to cancel, we'll try up to 24 hours. After that, they'll already be working on it, so it won't be possible. So a kind of 24-hour max cancellation policy. Within that, we'll do what we can. Then the final thing is pricing quotes. So if it's a scan only that you're looking for, obviously that's a set price and that's fine. But this is in terms of the copyright fee. So in the current version, with the automated version, the quote would be instant. It would just be looked up via the API. That's not possible now. Excuse me. And to try not to have too much going to and fro, what we've come up with, and again, we sense check this with some of you, is a kind of pre-approved price cap idea. So we're going for a pre-accepting cap or a pre-approved cap of £40 for the copyright fee paid. Now, just to recap on how that works, the The price for the copyright fee is set by publishers, and they can actually set pretty much whatever they want. If they haven't set one, then it'll default to, £30 for a book and £38 for a journal, extract. So we thought that the pre-accept cap at £40 is reasonable. When we sense checked that with the working group, that seemed good. And looking at the data from last year's or from the past couple of years of EHES, that was covered about 80%. Now, this is not coded into anything. So if after 2-3 months we discover that actually there's still a lot that's needing to be manually checked, we can adjust that if we together agree that we want to. But we're going to start with a £40 copyright fee paid pre-accept. So what that means is, now this is the kind of workflow, but I think it's maybe better if we go through it in a kind of step-by-step way. So the starting point, so this is through the DCS. If you're looking for a manual process, then it will be emailing the British Library as it was before. But through the DCS, your starting point will again be order from EHES. And as usual, if you say that you don't own the content, then the request will go through for a copyright fee paid scan. And if you have said that you already own it or you've already got permission, then the request will be for scan only. So the system will bring up a summary of the order. You will sense check this, just make sure it's what you want. If you discover it's not, then you cancel, go back, amend, whatever. And assuming that, yes, that's what you want, then you will click. Why are we not going forward? Yes, then you will click place EHES order. The system will generate the number and it will send an email to us at the CLA. Now I say us, it will be Stephen as Stephen on the help desk basically. And the system will also at this point auto forward to the British Library. So what happens now is behind the team, CLA support team, Stephen and Stephen and the British Library will be liaising, contacting you where necessary until the order is complete, whether that be fulfilled, cancelled or cannot be fulfilled. At this point also the order is registered in the DCS as an EHES order, so it will appear in the EHES section of the dashboard, it will appear in the report, and updates will be added to the notes section until the end of the request. Now that's the notes section of the request page because it will be largely Stephen and Stephen doing it manually. Behind the scenes, what will happen is the British Library will check if they can fulfill and whether the price is acceptable. So we'll go through each of these 3 scenarios in turn. So scenario 1 is the British Library cannot fulfill. If they can't fulfill, okay, I didn't realise I had animations here. Never mind, it's clearly gone wrong. This could be a journey of fun. If they cannot fulfill, they will send us at the CLA notification, and they'll actually close at their end, and we'll let you know that they can't, and that's pretty much it. The system, Stephen and Stephen will update the system as unable to fulfill, and that's the end of the system. So you can see here what Stephen and Stephen will be doing. They will go into the admin view, change the status to unable to fulfill, and that's it really. So there it will appear as unable to fulfill for you. So that's the simplest one. However, hopefully the majority will be can fulfill. So if it is over the pre-approved cap, so that's £40 copyright fee, then what will happen is, again, I've got some weird, I'm just going to click on until everything appears because that'll be better. There we go. So if the price is above the cap, then the British Library will send the price through to us at CLA, and Stephen and Stephen will add the price. In fact, I think I'll confirm next time whether we're going to email you as well. I think hopefully we can just add it directly into the DCS, and you'll get an alert. And then you'll basically, as you do now, have the option to accept the price or reject and close the order. If you accept the price, then that will again come to CLA. And actually what's happening here, I mean, as far as you're concerned, you've accepted the price, the British Library will continue to process. In fact, what we're doing is resubmitting the request with a higher pre-approved price, and they will start from scratch. But from your perspective, yes, I want this, and they will continue. And we'll pick that up in a moment. If you say, actually, no, that's too high, then you'll just close the order. We'll get notification that you've closed it. And that's basically the end of it. Now, should you use that close order at any other point up until the 24 hours, then we'll also inform the British Library, and they'll stop processing. So let's look at some of that in action. What am I looking for? Yes, to close the order, you will just press the close order here, and that'll send the message to the CLA team. Good. And as a result of closing the order, it will appear in the EHES report as order cancelled. Right, scenario 3. So this is the hopefully around about 80% of requests where the British Library is able to fulfil and the price is within the pre-approved cap. So at this point, what's happening is the British Library will just go ahead and create the scan. They won't come back to you with the price, they'll just, because you pre-approved it. So that's fine, they'll create the scan, they will send the scan and the final price. So obviously you'll see the price to us at the CLA. So Stephen and Stephen will upload the scan into the DCS and they'll add the price. We'll see that in a second. And then you'll be alerted that it's ready for you to review. So let's see what that looks like. Again, these are obviously mock-ups. I mean, you can see the dodgy marks. Hopefully next time we meet, I'll be able to show you the completed work. But this is what people are currently working on creating. So yes, Stephen and Stephen will add the EHES document. They will add the price in here, and then that will appear for you with the price, with the status document uploaded and awaiting review. In the EHES section of the dashboard, you'll have items here awaiting review, and the price at this point will appear in the report. So when you go in to review it, again, as now, you will click one of two buttons. You will click accept or report a problem. Again, that's no change from now. It's just that we will be facilitating that in a slightly more manual way. So if you accept the scan, then, oh, there we go. Then you'll just click accept. It will be updated as fulfilled and the status will be accepted. And that means that the scan will now be available to use. And it will appear as it currently does, as an EHES with your name, fine. If, on the other hand, something isn't right and you need to report a problem, then again, as now, you'll use the report a problem button. You'll be asked, as now, for a little bit of detail. There'll be the same drop down, what's wrong with it. And then you will send it. And what happens there? Oh, I've got all these silly animations that I hadn't realized were there. I think that's it. Good. So what happens there is the email will come to us. We will let the British Library know. They'll take a look at the issue. And I mean, here it absolutely depends on what the problem was and you know, the status of the scan. But the outcomes will be as they are now. You know, maybe they rescan, maybe they tell you, oh, actually on reflection we can't fulfill, or maybe they say, no, you're actually this is fine and it's going ahead, and so essentially it's accepted. But that's as it works now. So no change. Good. So that's a bit of a walkthrough of what we're planning. So next steps. As I say, work actually began this week. So the development team are working on the changes that we need in the DCS to make this possible in a slightly more manual way. Our goal is to go live for the 1st of August, so for the new license year, which should give you enough time to kind of get things in place for the new academic year in terms of content. I would just caveat that with, because the developers are currently working on it, if everything goes smoothly, this is absolutely fine, and we've got a little bit of buffer and plenty of time to test. But if there are any bugs or issues, then it might slip a little bit. But we'll keep you updated on that. And we'll do a fuller walkthrough in the next webinar, and hopefully at that point we can look at kind of live screens rather than my mock-ups. Good. Now I can't actually see the chat at the moment, so I don't know if there's questions. If there are, we'll pick them up after. There's just one other thing I wanted to mention while we're talking DCS updates. So looking a little bit further ahead, we're looking at ways that we can improve, well, the DCS in general. I mean, since the in-person workshops that we did in Q1, we've been having a kind of series of deep dives, if you like. The next thing I'm looking at is search functionality and how can we improve the search function in the DCS. I think that this is probably fine to look at via survey. So I would like to invite you to complete a little survey for me. I'm really hoping that Stephen is putting the link in the chat at the moment. You can also access it through the QR code if that's easier. It should only take a couple of minutes. It's just a question of, what kind of things do you use to search? What, ISBN title, blah, blah, blah. A little bit about just changes, what would make sense, Boolean terms, things like that. Help us improve the search. So if you're able to answer that survey for me, that would be wonderful. Ideally this week. Hopefully we'll have enough responses this week to kind of take it forward. So thank you for that in advance. After this, I'll be contacting people who signed up in the deep dive poll last time to look at the reading list management systems, the integrations. We'll start with the Ex Libris Leganto integration and then move on afterwards to Tallis and Keylinks. So as I say, if you didn't reply to the original deep dive poll, if you did, that's great, you're on the list and I'll contact you. But if you didn't and you would like to be involved in the, let's say, Ex Libris Leganto integration discovery session, then please just drop me a line, just email me. I'll put my email in the chat later in case anybody doesn't have it. As a reminder, though, these sessions are active workshops to kind of drill into your needs, identify issues with the current system. They're really not for information sessions. Those will come later once we've developed what we're going to do in the way forward. So if you want to be involved, that's wonderful, but it's an active workshop, and so that we can drill into your needs. Whew, good, right. I think that's quite enough from me. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll go to questions for anyone for any topic. I can see that there's things in the chat already. Sarah's giving contact details. That's wonderful. Lydia. Okay. And Stephen's put the yes, thank you very much for that. Great. So open questions. I don't think you're able to come off mute, so you will have to use the chat for questions. But please do. They can be for me around EHES, they can be for Sarah around EHES, around the license, or around data. Bethan, you've got your hand up, but I'm not sure that we're able to unmute you, so you probably will have to put your question in the chat. In the meantime, Kevin, any likelihood of EHES being available before 1st of August? No. Do you know what? We're targeting 1st of August. It coincides with the beginning of the license year. And I think that's the realistic date. Yeah. Are there plans to expand the number of LMS systems that can be integrated? LMS systems. Well, we do have the facility to set up a bespoke API. If you'd like to talk about, we do have a number of people who have. If you want to talk about that, then perhaps we can have a chat separately, Richard. In terms of LMS, so library management systems rather than reading list, I think we have 6, and they're the 6 most commonly used ones. If there's enough demand, then we can certainly look at other ones. But we can talk separately about that and figure out which one we're looking at. Gonna have it. Yeah, I'm sure, Kevin. Yeah. But we're, we've got to build it first. So yes, Stephen and Stephen will be braced, as will the British Library team. Why the hike from around £14? Right, let's recap on the costs. So there are 2 parts to an EHES order. One is the standard scanning fee, which I would have to check the precise prices, but it's £6 something if the source content is digital. And that is basically a service fee for the British Library to make the copy, take the time to do it, blah, 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 blah. And it's £10 something for a physical copy, a little bit higher because they need to do an awful lot more work. They've got to go to the shelf, pick it, go to a photocopier, scan it, blah, blah, blah. So one side is the service fee for scanning. The other side is the copyright fee, which is the basically you paying for permission to use it, and that's the fee from the publisher. 14, I'm not sure how many are 14, but as I say, the publishers can set their own price for the copyright fee paid, part of the fee. Some of them do, some of them are lower, so maybe some are 14 and you just happen to be going to these. I'm to be honest, I don't actually know what they tend to be, but some are certainly higher. And I do know that the default is £30. So sorry, if a publisher does not set a specific fee, or they just think actually that default's fine, then it will default to the default, which is £30 for a chapter from a book and £38 for an extract from a journal. And as I say, £40 would cover around 80% of the requests that were made over the past couple of years. Yeah. And it's not a hike. We're actually not putting up the prices this year. So. And thank you for adding that, Kevin. Yeah. So whether you've been looking at the service fee, Keith, or maybe you're just very lucky and you happen to be going to a cheaper publisher. Any questions? Anybody want more detail on data and what we do? Oh, right, we set up a new portal. There's no data to view in it. Ah, right, that sounds like one for you, Sarah.
Yes, I think it is. Yes, the data is being loaded at the moment, so don't panic if there's nothing in there. It will come within the next couple of weeks or so. There's just some logistics in getting the order right. So don't worry if there's nothing there at the moment. There will be. If there's nothing there in a couple of weeks, do get back to us. But it is on its way. So apologies if that's slightly alarming. But yeah, it will be there soon.
Thank you. Any more? We have got a few minutes if anybody wants to ask another question. I have a question for you then. So Harry talked us through what happens with the data that you supply. How much of this was further detail of what you knew how much of this did you know already? How much of this was completely new? Sorry, that's a very open question, but maybe I should ask a yes, no, so you can do the thumbs up. Was it useful? Yeah. Yeah, getting hands and thumbs up now. That's good. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, good. I mean, it shouldn't be a complete surprise. So that Nicola's point about useful, I had a bit of an idea, but it added detail. That's great. Good. Okay. Well, there's no more questions coming through at the moment. Oh, I was going to add my email agenda. Okay. Oh, nope. .uk. Should anybody not have already signed up for the Ex Libris Leganto integrations deep dive and would like to get involved, just drop me an email directly. I'll add you to the list. Other than that, thank you very, very much for joining us. Thank you very, very much to Harry and to Sarah, and as always to Stephen. And we will see you next month. We'll be talking about the bulk permissions rechecks and more about EHES. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely day and a lovely weekend. Bye. Take care.
Bye.